So you might have heard of trusts and how awesome trusts are, both when you're alive and when you're no longer with us. But there's one huge mistake that I see time and time again that just frustrates me to see it continually repeated. Just yesterday, I was meeting with an estate attorney who's very successful in her practice, and she told me that this is likely the biggest single problem that she sees when people go and make a trust. So in today's video, I wanted to take a few minutes talking about this one mistake and how you can fix it. Hi, I'm John Norberg, and welcome to the Financial Prof series. Alright, so what is the single biggest mistake that I see, and I'm sure lots of estate attorneys out there who may be watching this also see when people go and create a trust? When they're founded, they're not funded. Unfortunately, the biggest problem out there seems to be that people don't fund their trusts. And maybe it's because they don't know how to, maybe it's because there's a lot of moving pieces and it's complicated and it takes time, and especially if you're an entrepreneur, you've got a business to run. I get that. So I wanted to at least make sure that we talked through the how, and then of course if you need someone to help you out, that's where you would call in your legal team, working with your financial advisor, your accountant, to help make sure all the right pieces get to where they should be. A quick caveat, I am not a lawyer and we do not provide legal advice. I just know that this sort of problem can have ramifications across investment, tax, and legal if you don't follow through correctly. So, 4 steps on how you can successfully fund your trust. Step number 1. Well, obviously if you're going to fund a trust, you have to found that trust. So step 1 is work with a good attorney to set up a trust that's going to fulfill your wishes, potentially while you're still alive and perhaps, of course, once you're dead. So once you've got that trust established and it's out there, the documents have been signed, everything's notarized, etc., signed, sealed, delivered, now it's time to move on to step 2, which is identifying and determining which assets do transfer into that trust. What do you actually want to go into that trust so that you can, in fact, fund it properly. So, this is oftentimes real estate, bank accounts, investment accounts, life insurance policies, all of these things. Really a good rule of thumb is if it has a title, like the title to your house or the title to your vehicle, it can probably go in that trust. And there's a good chance that it should be in that trust, depending on what you want the trust to do with that asset. Right? So the beautiful thing about a trust is it can be very specific. It can call out very specific things from, a piece of silverware with your initials on it to the entirety of your estate and how that gets distributed, again, both while you're alive and after you're gone. So once you've taken care of step number 2, which is identifying which pieces of your assets you want to put into that trust, now it's time to move on to step number 3, which is updating those asset titles. So if it has a title, chances are it's going to be able to go into that trust. A couple of examples here. Real estate. You would do execute a deed transfer for ownership now moving from yourself or whoever the current owner is to that of the trust, so that the trust now owns or has title to that real estate. This is actually a really common one because, again, another big mistake that I see, maybe we'll talk about this in a future video and the ramifications thereof, is real estate. Real estate oftentimes goes into trust because, especially if you have real estate in multiple states here in the United States, say you've got a property or 2 in Maryland, a property 2 in North Carolina, and maybe a couple of properties in Florida, then you're going to find that if you pass without having done any good estate planning, those properties are very likely going to have to go through probate in each of those different states, which adds time, headache, and cost to the beneficiaries, which very likely is not your intention, right? So this is where we really need to be careful about identifying what needs to go into that trust and how that trust is structured. Again, going back to step 1. Another quick example, bank accounts. This one is usually pretty easy. You open up a bank account in the trust's name and or transfer funds from your personal account to the trust account that has been established. Stocks and investments, obviously this is one we deal with all the time here at Norberg Wealth Management. We simply update brokerage accounts, for instance, to reflect the trust as the new owner, right? Life insurance. This is one that sometimes gets forgotten about because life insurance generally only kicks in if we pass away, right? Oftentimes, life insurance, you simply want to update the beneficiary on that life insurance from an individual or individuals to the trust so that when that life insurance pays out, after you're no longer here, then it goes according to whatever the trust says for how and when it gets distributed. And then finally, step 4, again, this one gets forgotten a lot too, is maintain that trust over the years. So it's very common for relationships, wishes, people to change. And this means that if they're in the trust or trustees or whatever the case may be, then there's a pretty good chance that that's going to need to get updated and maintained. Quick story, I just met with a client last week who she's got a beautiful trust, tells exactly what she wants to have happen with her estate. She's been very successful in that regard, but there's someone very close to her who is unfortunately experiencing some mental decline, and as a result of that, we need to make sure that that gets updated on the trust. And this is not an uncommon issue. I see things like this all the time. A trustee is experiencing health issues. Just a month ago, I met with another wonderful client of mine, and she had almost the same issue. The trustee in this case, someone very close to her, it wasn't mental decline, it was a slightly different health issue, but that person wasn't sure if they were going to be able to successfully execute the duties that would be incumbent upon them upon my client's passing. So in that case, we did a trust update as well, just to make sure that this trust is maintained over the years. So all of this to say that if you have a trust and you're not sure if it's been properly funded or it's been a while since you looked at it, then drop us a line or give us a call. We're happy to take a look at things with you and tell you if and when you need to go and visit a good local estate attorney or someone who's in your locality, and help you hold your hand with funding that trust, particularly when it comes to the financial assets, which typically are one of the biggest reasons we set up trusts in the first place, right? So if you don't know if that trust funded, or if you think it might have some assets that need to go into it, and you just don't know exactly how to go about it, let us know. We'll give you a hand. And in the meantime, we'll see you out there.